Hey folks, welcome back to Good Enough Customs. So this week we are going to take care of a couple things that I've been putting off for way too long. Need to get this stuff sorted out. So we're going to work on Steve today. For those of you that don't know, Steve is my 1980 shortbed Chevy, obviously. I picked this truck up about, God, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. Paid $800 for this truck. Had been sitting in a field for 15 years. Wet sanded it down. Basically just wet sanded. And this is the way the paint patinaed. This was not created. The paint was kind of this way, but it accentuated once I wet sanded it and put the clear on it. Originally 6-cylinder truck. Put a Vortec 350 in it. That I got for a hell of a deal. I forget what the numbers are for how much I've lowered it. I can't remember if it's 5 up front or 6. And I know it's like 7 in the back, maybe 8. It's a lot. Steve sits real low. But Steve's a great truck. I never want to get rid of this truck. But, moving on. I love this truck. Which is really bad because it's needed a fuel pump for quite some time. So originally this truck had this Holley, it's a red pump. That my buddy Jason gave me. He's just like, I guess I don't know if it works or not. You can just take it. So I decided to use it. It works okay. It's really loud though. So I was like, I don't know if that guy's gonna live. So on Power Tour in 2022, I opted to change out the fuel pump. I was just like, well, I don't really need that big old Holley. It's not that much of a, it's just a bone stock 350. So, whatever. So I put one of those little Edlebrock Micro pumps in it. And I know when I put it in there, I was just like, this is not the best place in the world because it's right next to the exhaust. But, up underneath this guy, there's not a ton of options, for where you can put your fuel pump, especially when you're supposed to put it within 12 inches and below the level of your, tank. There's not a lot of options here, especially on a short bed because there's not that much room. So I built a little bracket. I put it on the inside of the frame rail, probably too damn close to the exhaust, but I couldn't really, there really wasn't any other place to put it there. So before it'd been on the outside of the thing, I just kind of, threw it in there at last minute type thing, threw it on the outside of the frame rail, and it looked like hot garbage. So I've gone and gotten another Holley Red fuel pump. Don't remember the specs on this guy. 6 to 7 psi. I forget what the gallon per hour is, but it's head and shoulders more than that little micro pump I got. And that's kind of where I'm seeing the problem is last time I had this guy on the dyno, C10 Nationals, I think. He was like, yeah, dude, I can see the bowls, the bowl on your carburetor just running dry. Where the pump can't keep up with the consumption. So the pressure's there, but the volume's not. Anyways, that should fix that. That should also solve that little lean pop that I get on D-cell whenever I'm out driving this thing. Get going down the road, 60, 70 mile an hour, in it for a little while, and then you let off a little bit, and if you don't give it that little goose, she's going to backfire. So so she's running a little lean, once you get up in the higher RPM, and we don't want to do that. Plus, last time I drove it, it barely made it to the gas station because it couldn't hardly move. So we're going to get that swapped out today. So I guess I need to get Steve up in the air and figure out exactly where we're going to go with this thing. I've got a little bit extra fuel hose that I picked up the other day. Hopefully it's enough because that was all they had. And maybe using it in conjunction with what I've got under the truck right now, maybe I can make all this work. So we'll get Steve up in the air and slide up underneath it and take a look at what we got and get a game plan together. And I guess get started on this thing. I don't know if y'all saw what exactly happened just then. You know when the jack stand is extended all the way up and then it slams down and you know, have your finger right in the way? Oh my God. Yeah, that it hurts really bad. Like my finger is like so swollen right now. But you can see where it caught me. It really hurts. So yeah, so I took a few minutes to, you know, gather myself. And you got me a little bit of ice. So icing this guy down so it stops swelling, because right now it feels like my finger's about to explode. So but hey, the front's up, so we're halfway there. I gave it the shake test just a second ago. Everything's good there. So I'm gonna go to the back, then get it on stands, and then we'll give her the big shake test. And then after that, I'll slide up under here and we'll see what we can't do. Hopefully can continue on doing things like I should, but I'm definitely, this finger's useless right now, because it's just, oh my God, it hurts so bad. So all right, get back to it. All right, so up here underneath Steve, looking at the pump that I put in for Power Tour, that guy's right there. And you know, now looking at it, oh, there we go. Now looking at it a little bit better. I mean, you can see I mounted it inside the frame rail to, you know, protect it from getting hit with stuff. But the problem is there's no airflow around it. So you got my trans cross member right there, and then here's this guy, and of course right here's the exhaust. So and then, you know, there's a little flexible connector going up to the header. So yeah, probably not the best place, but being that this is the fuel tank, and right here, I'll get my lighting, and then right here is all my connections, and it needs to be mounted below the fuel tank. I mean, there's not much options here. So yeah, maybe I can mount it up in here, and it'll still be pulling. It'll be pulling uphill, but it won't be much. So hopefully that works. That's really about it. There's no good place to mount this. So I guess over here should work. Let's see, we got brake line right there. So I can mount it right in here. I got plenty of room, and this is far enough off the headers to where the exhaust won't be screaming hot. I don't know. Not a whole lot of options down here, so let me think on it, and I'll be back. All right, so looking around underneath, there's just not a good spot. Trying to stick with what the manufacturer says about location being below the tank, all that fun stuff. So I started thinking about it. I was like, you know, the old fuel pump worked perfectly fine right here on the outside of the frame rail. Now, the problem I had there was the routing of the hoses. It just looked like it was all over the place. It looked like hot garbage. So I grabbed the old fuel pump and, you know, slid her up here. So that's about where it would live. There we go. That's about where it's going to live. So mostly it's protected from road stuff because it's inside, you know, it's on the frame rail. And you pull it back, here's where the tire is. So anything coming off the tire is going to be tracking up this way. Yeah, don't mind the rust. So it's got a little protection here with the cab mount. So, you know, I'm thinking I'm just going to mount it back here. The holes are already there. It's not a terrible location. Like I said, I think the problem was how I routed it last time was just, it looked horrible. So I think this time if I take and just kind of route the fuel hoses a little bit better, you know, I can come right here on top of the frame rail and out right here. I can bend this corner down on the edge of the fuel tank bend that guy down. That'll give me a little bit more room for that guy to sweep in and hit the pre-filter. So I think if I bend this guy down and I come through here, I'll be fine. The problem comes is on the output side. You know, there's not a ton of room here. So I think that part I'm not 100% sure on, but maybe I can slide it back a little bit and gain me, I don't know, these things are slotted. They're slotted a little bit, so I could slide it back a little bit and just barely catch that hole with the front edge of that slot, and that gives me a little bit more room. I might could make that radius to go up and over the body mount, and then over top the frame rail into the engine compartment. If I bend this tab down here, that gives me a little bit more play going backwards. So I think that's what I'm going to do is bend this guy down. That'll let it come in and droop in and run over to where the pre-filter is, which would be somewhere in this neighborhood. That'll also take care of that hard edge, you know, and it wanting to chafe on the line. And then I can bring this, should be okay. Shouldn't be too tight of a radius to get up and over that body mount. And then go, you know, on the inside of the frame rail, up in that area. So, you know, it wasn't a bad location before. I never ran into an overheating issue with the fuel pump out here. It's separated by the chassis from the exhaust. There's just so much going on back here in the back, you know, back in this neighborhood of the frame rail. I got brake lines in the way. There is a spot where I might could mount it, but again, it's up. It's above the tank. So I know these guys are really good at pulling, not so much at pulling distance, you know, vertically. That's really going to put a strain on the pump. And I'd really like the pump to last as long as, you know, as it possibly can. Because, I mean, these little red pumps, I forget how much it was, 180 bucks or something like that. It ain't cheap. That little micro pump that I got, I think it was like 50 bucks. So, yeah, whatever. But I think right here is going to be the solution. And it'll just be, instead of doing what I did last time with a bunch of loops and weird crap going on with the hose, I'll actually make some provisions for it and try to make it work out all right. Worst case, if I need to, I can open this hole up a little bit, slide it out just a little bit, maybe slide this one back a little bit, and get it, you know, slid back just a little bit more, to where it'll actually, you know, this radius coming off the output going up. Make sure that radius is okay. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me go get, I don't need a lot of tools, but I do have to get some tools because I got to pull the old pump out, disconnect the lines. I'm going to need a bucket or a catch can of some sort. So I'm sure there's some fuel going to come out. So let me get all that stuff together and then I'll be right back. All right, well, here's the little micro pump. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this guy, and I got a couple bolts somewhere to plug the fuel lines. I don't actually have a whole lot of gas left in this thing. It's below a quarter tank, so hopefully it doesn't gravity pull and, you know, basically give me a bath in gas. That is never a good time. So yeah, so I can go ahead and pull this dude off right here. Oh yeah, we're already seeping. And let me get out of the way. Try to keep from getting a gas bath here. Oh shit, I got a couple zip ties. All right, that zip ties off. Well, at least give me a little room to work here. And right down the arm, just like I like. All right, so we have a bolt in that now, and we'll go ahead and tighten her down. Try to keep that guy from leaking on me. I will have to replace this piece of line. That was my feed. It's not going to be long enough because I've got to move clear over here. Okay, got my cables disconnected. And I grounded this guy to the bracket, so that ought to be fun. There. Okay. So both fuel lines are now off. So I still got a little residual coming out of the pump, but that's okay. Let's see. I don't remember what size these are. 1/2 inch, maybe. Yep. All right, all the fuel pump out of the way. All right. So now I'm back under here and I'm looking around. I'm thinking the reason why the fuel line was so squirrely the way it was routed was because I was using the hard line, or I was reusing the hard line. So I had the line coming out of the pump back up over top and back to the fuel line feed way over here. So I've got a rubber line that goes all the way up. So we'll just continue using that. So I gotta get some snips so I can cut I got a couple zip ties holding this guy down. So get some snips, we can loosen him up and route him back outside the frame rail. And then I've got a longer piece of hose that I'll need to grab and put on this side. I guess I can go ahead and disconnect this and just pull this hose off. All right, so old pump, she gone. This line I'll be able to reuse. I'll just have to reroute. The line coming off of my feed, I'll have to run new because I got to make it longer. So I'll take this guy and route him up over this frame rail, and I still got to bend down this stuff. So let's, I guess let's get out there. Actually, I got to go get some snips so I can cut my zip ties off of the soft line that I've got routed right now. So I can reroute the feed from the pump to the engine, and then let me grab a longer piece of hose to come from here over the frame rail to the feed on the new pump. So let me do that real quick, and we'll just work on the outside of the frame. It'll be a little bit easier for the camera to set up anyhow. So, all right, I'll see you here in a minute. I wasn't able to go over top of the frame rail and over top of this body mount like I had hoped. When I started laying it in there, it basically puts it right up against where the flange for the header is. And we all know that you don't want your fuel sitting right on top of your exhaust. It's not a good thing. Heats up the fuel, you know, vapor lock, all that fun stuff. So I do have a slot in the frame rail right here, right behind this body mount. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm thinking it's going to cave that when I go to try to hook this guy in. The only thing I can think of is maybe I can pull this inside the frame rail just a little bit to try to relax that a little bit. Worst case, what I could do, and it's not the best, is if I can hunt down some 3/8 fuel line, hard line, which I'm pretty sure I don't have. I'm gonna have to go to the parts house and get that. But take and make just make a nice 90 here, and then, you know, tie it in back here, and then tie it into the you know, the actual pump. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this little lip bent down. Hopefully that bends without any type of issue. Just grabbing a pair of pliers, get this guy out of the way, and we're just going to flare him down. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. All right, so that gives me a little more fall there. Plus, I don't have to worry about it sitting there just rubbing on this, you know, hard edge. Now, if it does look like it might rub on that edge, I may just I'll get something to kind of protect it. I don't know what. Maybe grab another piece of bigger hose and just sleeve it on top of this right there so it's got some sort of wear protection on it. But that should work for the input from the tank. And like I said, we'll see. I'm not real hopeful that this is going to work. Real optimistic, I guess I should say. Yeah, it just seems like that's just gonna pinch off the fuel line. It might work, but it might pinch it off. So I'm not 100% sure what to do there, as far as going to the actual motor. I mean, it might make more sense to come with the hose backing over top of the fuel pump and come into the feed side and then lace it back this direction and go catch the still line, which runs along the frame rail up. I believe that's the way I kind of had it before, but it was all looped in like right in here and it looked like trash. So not 100% how I'm going to do that just yet, but I do know one thing I need to do is scrape this little section of the frame where I want to catch my ground. So I've got the bracket just kind of loosely on here so I can kind of set my height. Because what I don't want to do is be on the floor, but I do want to give myself plenty of height on this guy. And I'll just put that over there, I suppose. So we're just going to kind of figure out where we need to live. All right, so that, yeah, that's hitting the floor, so we don't want to do that. So we can come down a little bit. Actually, that might work out good. Somewhere right in that neighborhood. Okay. So there is basically the bottom of my bracket, if I can get this bolt out. The bottom of my bracket is going to sit right here at the top of at the seam between the pump housing, or this is the pump housing, and then the I don't know, these two pieces. So so I'm gonna set this guy right at the bottom of that. That gives me enough clearance on the top to where I'm not going to be up against the floor, because these guys do make some racket. And it gets me down low enough to where this little hook may not be an issue. And this guy, I can pretty much put him wherever I want. He'll be fine. But this one's the one I'm concerned with. So if I bring it down low enough, that may actually work out just fine. So, all right, cool. I'm going to get this guy cinched down, and yeah, then we'll move along. So that guy's cinched down. Yeah, and I should be able to sneak him back a little bit. There'll be a little happy medium here, but that's still going to be tight. Wonder if I can bring him down a little bit more. Just wanting to flatten out right there. So if I bring this down to there, does that help? It's still wanting to flatten out. I think I'm going to be fighting that flattening out no matter what I do. All right, well, so it looks like I'm going to be fighting the flattening out where it's hitting this. Maybe I can notch that. That's probably not the best idea, since that is kind of, you know, how the body's mounted. Notching that may not be the best idea. But is it really going to miss that little bit right here? I don't know. I think if I notch that, that probably won't work too well. That'll put a little too much stress on top of the body mount, and I might bend the body mount. I don't want to do that. All right, so I went over to the workbench, made me a little wire extension, basically. That way everything can kind of connect up, and I don't have to rerun the cable. And then I went ahead and put a ring terminator, or a ring connector, on the negative, and a female side of the blade connector for here on the positive. And I have these little weatherproof one here. This guy sets in pretty nice with it. Same thing on the other end. So basically just a little extension for the hot side. So I guess at this point we can go ahead and mount up the pump. Oh, I also did lower the pump down just about a 1/2 inch. And then lowering that down a 1/2 inch, that brings this over here, my feed to the engine side. It keeps it from having to go so tight to where it's choking it off. So it brings it down to where it shouldn't choke off. So, and the other thing I thought about too, I was like, well, I could just put a hose clamp right here. It's kind of, you know, goofy the way to do that, but put a hose clamp right there. That'll keep it from pressing and, you know, kinking it over, giving it a spot to kink on. So I may do that. We'll see how it does after I get everything bolted up. But yeah, I've got this little ring terminal on here. So we're just going to take it. It's just going to ground between the bracket and the chassis. So it'll just kind of hang out there, something like that. And I'm going to route my hot wire through this hole in the chassis. And then that way everything stays tucked inside there as far as the electrics go. And then we'll get our hoses all hooked up. So, all right, enough yapping. Let's do it. I do need to tighten my band up here. I had it a little too clocked in, so it didn't want to seat. So I'll just have to tighten up this clamp, but I've also got to tighten up here on the frame rail, get that snug down. But this should work out pretty good for that. That should be all right. And then for here, like I said, it still wants to flatten out a little bit, but it's got a lot of room before it flattens completely. So like I said, I might put something there. I don't know. We'll see how it works. But yeah, pretty much installed. So let me crank all these bolts down real quick, get this guy snugged up where he needs to live. I'll trim down my hoses and go and get those guys clamped on. Maybe do a little adjustment to and fro on these guys and make sure that's all in good shape, because I may need to kick this guy, because I have a little bit of adjustment up and down and side to side on this. So I can do a little reconfiguring, so to speak, to get this guy lined out where he needs to go. So let me do all that, and then I'll be back. That needs to come down more. Yeah, actually that's going to work just fine. That's not, I am going to double stack something over that. I'm probably going to put another piece of bigger hose over that to protect it, because I don't want that to, obviously that'd be a bad time. Have that thing wear through and just start spraying freaking fuel everywhere. But that's not bad at all as far as, bend is concerned. It's actually got a fairly decent little radius to it. So we'll go ahead and snug this side down, because, it's good. Good-ish. Good enough. Next problem. I wasn't thinking this side was going to be an issue, but I flattened out this side. So I need to bring my corner of this guy down a little bit more, so that it'll let this guy, fall a little bit more than where it is now. So looks like I'm going to have to bend that tab a little bit more. Actually, a significant amount more. I'm not sure if I've got enough real estate to do all that or not. I may have to pull this back off. All right, well, that got me a little bit more room. To be honest, I could probably snip this guy down a little bit too. I did cut him a little long. I think that'll work just fine. We got a nice radius right here. I don't know if it can show up on camera worth the crap or not, but there's a pretty nice radius right here. It flattens a little bit, but it's no worse than this guy. So we'll ride it like this and see if this is going to work. Yeah, I like this setup a hell of a lot better than I like my previous attempt at setting a Holley pump up over here. Like I said, I'll get a little bit bigger hose to basically encapsulate this and zip tie it down. So that way this guy's got some rub protection. I don't have to worry about it rubbing through and, spraying fuel everywhere, because that's never a good time. Back here on this back side, it's got such a nice little fall to it that I think it's going to be just fine. Was able to get that guy bent down pretty significantly, so I think he'll be all right back there. So really the only thing left to do here is finish tightening everything down. My gas that I spilled all over the floor is pretty well dried up, so I'm not going to be out here wallering in it. But gas is pretty much dried up, so I should be in pretty good shape to tighten up these bolts, and then we'll give her a little test fire, make sure she's pumping and priming and doing everything that she should. Sometimes you got to go back and backfeed some water. Don't want to do that. Backfeed some gasoline back into it to kind of give it something to pull against. So hopefully that's not the case. I didn't run into that last time when I did all this, so it should be able to pull fuel pretty easily. So yeah, I'm fairly satisfied with this. I think this will work out okay. And then I've just got to get a little zip tie to tie this guy down so he don't go nowhere. I'll go ahead and find a piece of hose to put over this to help protect him, and then I'll probably do the same thing back here just in case. It shouldn't need it, but just in case, we'll cover that guy up too. So let me get these two bolts snugged up, and then we'll get back to it, and we'll test fire this guy and make sure everything's in good shape. So be right back. Well, all right, there it is in all its glory. Finished out. The lines look pretty good. I did find a little bit bigger piece, just split it, zip tied it around, did the same thing back over here in this back little spot. She's on there nice and snug. Actually, the only thing I still got to do is put a dang zip tie on my power so it ain't just floating around. But yeah, I'll go ahead and do that here in just a few minutes. But real quick, we'll go ahead. God almighty, look how big that fingertip is right now. Yeah, she's a little puffy. So God, it hurts so bad. But anyways, we'll go ahead and give this guy a test fire, make sure she's pumping, verify we don't have any leaks, and we should be in pretty good shape. And then I'll just come back here in a little bit and zip tie that hot line up so I don't have to worry about it flopping around and chafing and doing its thing. So yeah, y'all gotta sit here and watch and tell me if it leaks. I don't see any leaks or drips. Let's double check it. Nothing wet. Of course, I don't know if it actually pumped anything. Like I said, fuel tank's pretty empty, so it may not actually have any fuel to pick up. We'll give her a fire and let's see what it does with it fired off. All right, so new fuel pump is on Steve, and it's ready to go. No leaks. Everything seems to be good in that respect. So we're going to call this one good. I did notice while I had Steve in the air, and I just kind of was looking around, that I've got a significant amount of grease on the wheel on the passenger side again. Don't know what it is about this passenger side, but it's just being a pain in the ass. So I'm going to pull the wheel, or at least the center cap off the wheel. Hopefully I can just pull the center cap and the dust cover, get in there, check, and make sure that it isn't, like, you know, completely out of grease. But really what I'm hoping to do is just get in there, and maybe it's just needing a little bit snug. There is a little play there. I was able to rock it back and forth just ever so slightly. So I'll get in there, tighten that nut down again, pull the cotter out, tighten it down a little bit, slide the cotter back in, ready to go. So that's about it for Steve. Only other thing I got really left to do on this truck is, of course, clean. The interior is pretty much just wiping it down. Everything's just there. Outside, this thing's pretty filthy. I haven't washed it in, well, probably since last year. So it spends most of its time in the shop, so it's no big deal there. But it does need a good bath. And then my clear coat has started popping and peeling off here on the bed rail. I'm guessing it's right here where this this primer is, all the way down this bed rail. So pretty much right here on the outside edge, it's starting to peel down in here, and in here, and it's doing the same thing over there. So in order to keep it from, you know, continuing on and turning into a big mess like Little John is, I've got that Poppy's patina wipe on clear that I was going to use on Little John, which I probably still will. I'll have to go back and do that down the road, but primarily I want to use it on Big John. Big John, you know, it's a big truck and it likes to just fade so bad. And it takes forever to buff the thing. It is literally 2 days of running a buffer and wiping and rubbing, and oh my god, it's ridiculous. So I don't really want to keep doing that on Big John. Plus the paint, I'm sure, is getting pretty thin in some areas. So my thought was a little bit of this clear coat, it'll bring the shine up on the paint, and it'll be just fine, and I don't have to keep doing this every single year where I'm having to, you know, buff this thing out and spend the whole weekend killing my shoulders and my back buffing out Big John. But whenever I go to do that on Big John, I can get Steve prepped, because I've only got to do just my bed rails. So pretty much the side edge of the bed rail to the top of the bed rail, you know, here to here, and all I got to do is just wipe some clear coat on there and seal that back up. I've also got to do it on top of my tailgate, but just got to seal that back up so it don't start popping and really just making a big mess out of Steve. I don't want that. So I checked up on the roof. Everything's fine up on the roof. Everything's fine on the hood. It's just the bed rails. So we'll get that handled and get that sorted out. But I'm going to do that once I get Big John in here. So which will probably be next weekend, because now that the fuel pump's on Steve, and as soon as I get that wheel bearing sorted out, I'll get Big John pulled in, and I've got the starter, and I've got a new radiator for it. Pretty much the same deal I put on Little John. Actually, the one that's on Little John was supposed to go for Big John, as far as the radiator is concerned. So I bought a replacement. So we'll switch out the radiator and the starter on Big John, and that should get that truck back to pretty much 100%. And then while we got it in the shop, we'll go through and get all the paint prep stuff done and do the Poppy's patina wipe on clear. And I'll show all that stuff too, because it's kind of neat, you know, the process of getting through all that stuff. So we'll go through all that, and then while I've got the stuff out, I'll go ahead and knock out Steve's bed rails and tailgate and have all that stuff ready to go. So that's what's coming up next week, and or maybe it'll be something with the daily driver. I got some stuff I'm doing on the new daily. I've already replaced shocks. I'm getting ready to put all this stuff in. I've been working on the wiring harness, still waiting on a couple parts. So maybe it'll be me working on the new daily, or it might be me working on Big John. Don't know which, but I got to get all these things ready to go. And don't forget, folks, Southeastern Truck Nationals is July 12th and 13th. Should be an awesome time. Always is. I'll be there. Steve will be there. Big John will be there. Probably the new daily. And like I said before, unfortunately, Little John, I don't see any way for me to actually get Little John to the show, because I can't drive it an hour. It barely survives a 15-minute drive. So Again, the information for Southeastern Truck Nationals will be listed in the description. You can find out all that stuff at gmtruckshow.com. All the information's there on how to register and times and costs and all that fun stuff. So, all right, folks, that'll do it for this one. So, if you like the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting on? Just hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost nothing. All it does is help. So, if you want to follow me on social media, that information is listed below in the description. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, throw them down below, and I'll read through them and respond back fairly timely. It's not too bad right now. All right, folks. So y'all guys have a good one, and we'll see y'all guys next time. And just remember, it ain't got to be perfect. It's good enough, like Steve. Steve is definitely good enough. Actually, he is the epitome of good enough. So y'all take it easy. We'll see y'all next time.